Hello everyone. In this video, I discuss pie and bar graphs. A pie graph, also known as a pie chart, is a special chart that uses pie slices to show relative sizes of data to the whole. For example, in the pie chart we have here, we notice we have several different slices. Each one of those slices represents a specific percentage based upon the whole. So this data represents scores from a take-home test. If we take a look at the slices, we'll notice the largest slice at 30 is this slice here in purple. That's 30%. And it's for test scores from 36 to 40. What that means is that 30% of the students who took the test scored in that range from 36 to 40. And then we see we have some other slices, all slightly smaller, going down to the smallest slice here at 3% for scores ranging from 21 to 25. This chart tells us how each range compares relative to one another, but without knowing how many students were in the class, we won't know exactly how many students are in each pie slice. But we do know the percentages so that we can compare and look at scores and say, for example, that 30% of the class is between 36 and 40, and 23% of the class is at 31 to 35. And so if, for example, everyone who scored 31 or higher received an advanced score, then we could say that 53% of the students received that score by simply adding together 23% plus 30%. So we can also make comparisons that say that only 7% of the students scored 45 to 50, which is more than the students who scored at the bottom end 21 to 25. So again, this is all relative to the whole. If we knew, for example, that 50 students were in the class, then that would allow us to make conclusions of how many students were in each range. Next, we're going to take a look at a bar graph. A bar graph is a graphical display of data that uses bars of different heights. This is very similar to a histogram, which we have seen before. We discussed that in a histogram, each bar represented a particular interval. In a bar graph, each bar represents a specific category. This is a relatively unique bar graph here in that we have 3 bars in each category. And this type of bar graph is good for comparing different sets of data. If we look at the bottom of the bar graph, we'll notice we have data from a first period class, a third period class, and a fourth period class. And the way this bar graph is designed, it allows us to compare how each class performed at each given interval. So in this case, the intervals are the categories. And when we take a look at the y-axis, we'll see the y-axis is showing us the percent of students who scored any particular score. So for example, if we looked at the highest interval, 45 to 50, we can see that the first period class here, the darkest bar, and the third period class, the lightest bar, both had 20% of their students score in that interval, while the fourth period class only had 11. And we can see that these percentages, 20%, aligns to the 20% mark there on the y-axis. And so in a bar graph, it allows you to make comparisons between different groups, and in this case, the groups are intervals. Because we know percentages and we know the total number of students in the classes, we can draw some conclusions on approximately how many students were scoring in that specific interval. But just like in a pie chart, we don't know any specific scores. And since we do not have any specific scores, we cannot calculate things like mean, median, or mode. And we cannot tell exactly how many students scored a specific score, or even which student scored a specific score. This kind of data here is good for comparing different groups So if I want to know, for example, how students are performing in one class versus another, and then decide, well, what kind of assignment will those students need based on their performance. I hope this information has helped you as you move through your math career. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.